What if we are preparing people for jobs that are disappearing instead of opportunities that are emerging? Good morning, and welcome to Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership That Delivers Results AM Talk Show. I'm your host, Dr. Tekemia Dorsey, and today we are addressing a critical question. Are we preparing people for the future or holding them in the past? Because economic mobility is changing and leadership must change with it. Let me start with a real story. A manufacturing worker, let's call her Angela. She spent about 15 years in a stable job, reliable income, predictable hours. Then automation came. Within a year, her role was eliminated. Angela wasn't unskilled. She was unpaired for a shifting economy. And here's the reality of that. This is not an isolated story. This is a trend. Just yesterday, I was having an inbox chat with a colleague, so to speak. He's gone through 2 degrees, bachelor's and master's, was in a car accident not too long ago, but prior to that, he was thriving, on his way up, promotion, the whole nine. Of course, any type of incident does derail a person, but this individual bounced back. However, right now, for at least the last year and a half to 2 years, he's been having a hard time getting back into the mainstream of things. And like Angela, it's not that he isn't unskilled. He has just been, unfortunately, with 2 degrees, unprepared for a shifting economy. And again, this is more of a trend than not. So today's episode is about one thing: how leaders prepare people for the future of economic mobility, not just the present. Let's begin by understanding what's actually changing in the workforce. Because like 50 years ago, there's demand. Like 30 years ago, there's supply. But for some reason or another, in today's economic landscape, it is harder for the demand and the supply to come together for a smooth supply chain. Because the workforce is evolving rapidly. Automation is replacing repetitive tasks. AI is transforming industries like no other. Growth in contract and gig-based work continues to implode. And there is an increase of demand for digital and adaptive skills. Here's another example. A retail worker, let's call him Marcus, lost his job due to a shift in e-commerce. Sounds familiar? Sure it does. But unlike Angela, Marcus transitioned into logistics and supply chain operations. Why? Because he had access to reskilling opportunities. The truth: change is not the threat. The lack of preparation is. And again, we're seeing that more often now than ever. But we did have a forewarning. Now that we sit back and think about it, that forewarning was COVID. When COVID first hit, this time a month ago, about 6 years ago, it took the world by storm. But by July of that year, maybe the fall, a lot of people hit the unemployment. High school, bachelor's, master's, even PhD candidates hit the unemployment units. However, the reskilling of people's skills at that time rose to the top. And we're kind of back there now because of what's happening. So if the workforce is changing, the next question is, what skills actually matter? Now, traditional pathways often prioritize degrees over demonstrated ability. But the future has a different type of demand. And that demand is problem solving, which we know degrees do that, but so does skill. Adaptability. The future requires digital literacy, digital period, but absolutely the literacy part, and communication and collaboration. Let's consider Tanya. She didn't have a 4-year degree, but she did complete a short-term tech certification program, right? Within a year, she moved from a low-wage work into a high-paying IT support role. The difference wasn't time, it was targeted skill development. This sounds a lot of what we know that people are dealing with each and every day. And on some ends, it's a positive story, and on another end, it's not. So leaders must shift from asking, do you have a degree? To, what can you do and how quickly can you grow? Because that's what's really going to move the needle and have that return on investment and turning that entry into long-term loyalty. Move from asking, what degree do you have, to what can you do and how quickly can you grow? But skills alone are not enough. Learning must be continuous. And not just learning in order to renew your certification, but really learning on a job and trends that the world needs. That's another gap. The idea of one education for a lifetime career is completely outdated. You cannot simply have a degree and say, "Oh, I'm done. I done paid $60,000 for this BA associate's degree, $120,000 for this BA degree, $170,000 for this master's degree, and I'm over it. I'm done. I'm not going back. I'm not getting a certificate. I'm not doing any of that." That's outdated. Economic mobility now requires continuous learning in whatever area it might be. A mid-career professional, let's call him Derek, recognized his industry was evolving. Instead of waiting, he enrolled in ongoing training programs. Skill development. Within 2 years, he transitioned into a high growth field. What is the lesson once again? Those who adapt, advance. Those who don't risk being left behind. Leaders must create systems that support ongoing skill development. It's not an option because the world requires that right now of its industry and of its audience. Whew. Now let's talk about innovation and how innovation creates new opportunities, right? Every shift in the economy create new pathways. The question is, who has access to them? Coming back to that word again, accessibility. Because when we're thinking about green energy jobs, who has access to them? Technology and AI roles, who have really technology to them? Have access to them. and remote and global work opportunities. Question: who has access to them? Because access is not automated, it's not automatic either. Without intentional pathways, these opportunities remain out of reach for a many of people. And a many of people need them, right? Innovation without inclusion widens inequality. Yep, you heard it right. Innovation without inclusion widens inequality. Leadership must ensure meaningful industries are accessible, not exclusive. Dr. Dorsey, you talking too much. Hey, listen, sometimes it's hard to hear the truth, even first thing in the morning, right? And finally, leaders themselves must be prepared, not just those that you're hoping to bring in through the entry point or you're there to help them climb the ladder, but you yourself as a leader must stay prepared. Leaders must shift from being reactive to proactive. What does that mean, Dr. Dorsey? Great question. That means anticipating workforce trends, right? Partner with your local government, partner with your local state agencies to find out what work trends that are out there, right? Invest in future ready skills, not what happened yesterday, not what's just going on today, but what's going to be the supply and demand in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. We talked about AI. AI is all over the place, even in education. So, knowing that as a leader and as a business person, even if you're not the most savviest tech person in AI or in technology, now is the time to get ready. And then aligning workforce strategies with economic shifts. That is extremely important because leadership is not about managing today. It's about preparing for tomorrow. Now, we've covered a lot, short amount of time, but these are all easy to follow stories, examples, and ways that you can apply right away. So let's bring this into action because it's always great to be able to identify exactly how this relates to you. Here is your leadership challenge, right? I want you to identify one emerging trend impacting your industry. You know your industry better than anyone else's, right? So identify one emerging trend impacting your industry. Create one opportunity for reskilling or upskilling. Reskilling means to ensure that the current skills that your employees have are top notch. And upscaling means taking them to the next level, taking them out of their comfort zone, right? Upscale what they may not already have pulled out of themselves and reskill what they think they've mastered. And then commit to preparing your workforce for future, not current jobs. So, even if you do all of those things, here is the reality. Economic mobility is not static, it evolves. So, you take on this leadership challenge of identifying one emerging trend impacting your ability this month. In 2 months, you should do the same or the next quarter. So if you did this one leadership challenge one time each quarter this year or a year, you are coming up with 4 emerging trending topics that are impacting your industry, 4 opportunities quarterly to upscale and rescale your employees or yourself, and then you are continuing to prepare your workforce for the future, not just current. You are ahead of the curve. High five. All right. And leaders who prepare people for what's next are the ones who create sustainable opportunity, right? Whew, this has been amazing. It is bright and early. I am a light, bright type of person. Absolutely love the skin I am. Hopefully you are too. Um, Faced with challenges yesterday with my camera. I had to get up this morning at 4 a.m. to ensure that this episode did not miss a beat. And here we are. So if this episode challenged how you think about the future, I want you to take the next steps because I want you to enjoy that this is not just dialogue for rhetoric that leads nowhere. It is absolutely fact pointing and movement action to enhance yourself as a leader and to prepare your people, even if you are that person. So if you are challenged about the future, follow Disrupting Poverty Through Leadership that delivers AM results, AM talk show on YouTube. I want you to share one way you're preparing for the future of work. I want you to tag a leader who is thinking ahead, not just recreating. Because the future of economic mobility isn't waiting for you, me, or the next person. It is already here. I am truly excited and thank you for you to be tuning in for this episode once again. Until the next time, have a great day. Think forward, not backwards, and peace out. Thank you for joining. Hope you'll tune in tomorrow as well.